On June 3, 1998, one of the world's most advanced, most celebrated, and safest trains suffered an absolutely catastrophic failure. It turns out an engineering solution, one that was designed purely for comfort, became the trigger for a horrifying disaster. This is the story of how one single, flawed wheel brought down Germany's high-speed rail pride.
So picture this. It's 10:30 in the morning. The Intercity Express train, number 884, is rocketing from Munich to Hamburg. You've got 287 passengers on board, 8 crew members spread out across 12 passenger cars. Inside, the journey is what you'd expect. It's smooth, it's quiet, it's perfectly normal. Well, for a few more minutes anyway. For one passenger, George Dittman, and his family, that normal day was just shattered in an instant. A jagged piece of metal violently ripped right through the floor of their carriage, lodging itself right between their seats. I mean, think about that. If it had been just a few inches to the left or right, his family wouldn't have made it. And that was just the beginning.
So to really understand how something like this could even happen, we've got to rewind a bit. This train, which was supposed to be the absolute pinnacle of German engineering, had a secret flaw, a weakness that was hiding in plain sight, and ironically, it was engineered with the best of intentions.
Okay, so back in the 1980s, you had Japan's famous bullet train changing the game. Well, Germany wanted in, and they launched their own high-speed project, the Intercity Express, or IC for short. And these trains? They were technological marvels. They were sleek, computerized, incredibly comfortable. Everyone pretty much agreed this was the future of travel. Everything about them seemed perfect.
Now, originally, these first-generation ICE trains used something called a monoblock wheel. And it's just what it sounds like, one single solid piece of forged steel. It's a design that's been tested for ages, it's strong, it's reliable, and it's pretty inexpensive. But it had one problem. At really high speeds, even the tiniest bit of wear and tear on the wheel's surface created these little imbalances. You know how when your car's tires aren't balanced right, you feel that shake in the steering wheel? Well, it was the same idea here. When that wheel is spinning at 250 kilometers per hour, those tiny imperfections cause the whole train to vibrate, and passengers complained. In the buffet car, glasses and cutlery would rattle, and it just made the ride, well, unpleasant.
So, the engineers came up with a solution. A really clever one, actually, designed to create the smoothest ride you could imagine. Unfortunately, it would turn out to be a fatally flawed solution.
This new design was called the resilient wheel. So instead of one solid piece, it was more like a sandwich. It had an inner steel wheel hub, an outer steel rim that touches the track, and a 20-millimeter rubber damper squeezed between them. The idea was pretty brilliant. That rubber would absorb all those annoying vibrations. And as a bonus, if the outer rim wore down, you could just replace that part, not the whole wheel.
But here it is. Here was the fatal oversight. This wheel-within-a-wheel design had been used successfully for years, but on city trams that travel at like 30 kilometers per hour. No one had really truly tested how this design would hold up under the immense, incredible stresses of a high-speed train traveling nearly 10 times faster.
So these new wheels were installed across the whole fleet in 1992, and for the next 6 years, it seemed like a huge success. The complaints about vibrations, they stopped. But underneath the surface, alarm bells were already ringing and people were choosing to ignore them.
I mean, just look at this timeline. As early as 1992, Germany's own Fraunhofer Research Institute issued a warning, saying these wheels might not be safe for high-speed use. Then, 5 years later, in 1997, Hanover's tram company found fatigue cracks in their wheels, the same type, and they alerted the National Railway Deutsche Bahn. 2 crystal-clear warnings.
And unbelievably, both warnings were just dismissed. Deutsche Bahn pretty much said, hey, our own data shows no problems. And get this, instead of using ultrasonic machines that could find tiny microscopic cracks, they relied on visual inspections with flashlights. They claimed the machines gave too many false alarms. And that brings us right back to June 3, 1998. The warnings had been ignored, the inspections were not up to par, and a hidden crack was growing on the wheel of coach number 1. It all came together in the most catastrophic chain reaction imaginable.
Okay, so here's how it all went down second by second. First, that outer steel rim on the wheel of the first coach finally shattered from the stress. That's the piece that shot up through the floor next to the Dittman family. It then fell down onto the track but got tangled in the train's undercarriage, dragging along the rails. A few kilometers later, it slams into a track switch, flipping it.
This sends the rear wheels of the third coach onto a totally different track. The coach is ripped sideways and it slams directly into the support pillar of a 300-ton concrete bridge. The bridge just instantly collapses, crushing the coaches behind it, as the rest of the train plows into the wreckage at 200 kilometers per hour.
The force was just unimaginable. Coach 5 and the restaurant car were literally pancaked under the weight of that falling bridge, and the result was pure horror. Investigators later found that these two train cars were compressed down to a height of just 6 inches. The aftermath was a scene of just total and complete devastation. It took rescue crews hours to cut through the twisted metal, but as investigators began to piece together the evidence, they confirmed the cause, which led to sweeping changes in railway safety.
The human cost was absolutely staggering. In total, 101 people lost their lives that day. It remains the deadliest high-speed rail accident in history. And on top of that, another 88 passengers were severely injured, many with wounds that would change their lives forever. Those in the first two coaches, like Georg Dittmann and his family, they were just incredibly lucky to have survived. So the official culprit was confirmed to be something called metal fatigue. Every single day, that wheel rotated 500,000 times, and with every single rotation, the steel rim would slightly flex and bend, creating microscopic cracks. Over millions and millions of cycles, those tiny cracks grew. And the tragic irony, that rubber damper, the very thing that made the ride so smooth, also absorbed the vibrations that would have warned maintenance crews that the wheel was failing. So the lessons were learned at a terrible cost, and the industry responded with sweeping, essential changes. All of those resilient wheels were immediately ripped out and replaced with the original, solid monoblock design. Bridges near track switches were either relocated or redesigned to get rid of those support pillars. And the train's pressure-proof windows, which had actually trapped victims inside, were replaced with ones that rescuers could easily break. Today, the Eschede disaster is a required case study for every single railway engineer in Germany.
The Eschede disaster really serves as a chilling reminder. An innovation that was designed for nothing more than comfort introduced a catastrophic, unforeseen risk. It forces us to ask a really crucial question about all of our technological advancements. In our constant push for progress, for comfort, for efficiency, are we sometimes just a little too quick to overlook the dangers hiding just beneath the surface?